Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Trade season is upon us. Deals are happening around the league. What does it mean for the Lakers? We'll break it all down next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, this one is always going to be free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 26,000 subscribers to the channel are all getting a little curious about what's happening around the league now that trade season is upon us. A couple deals over the weekend, both involving former Lakers, which always makes it more fun. They're also, Andy, intrigued by what's going on with LeBron James and his foot now that he's presumably back with the team for a while, as far as we know. We'll get to all that in a moment, but do want to let people know first that today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. The College Football Playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff, presented by Allstate, begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. How many of the 12 teams do you think you could name, Andy, that are in it?
Notre Dame.
Georgia,
Michigan, I think.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, they beat Ohio State. Doesn't that get them in? All I know is that USC is not in it, and we seem no closer every year to be getting into it.
Actually getting slightly further away.
We're playing A&M in the Vegas Bowl, baby.
What happens in Vegas might stay there if you are the head coach and you lose this game.
No, too much money for the buyout.
You could do that's true.
No, it's way too much money for the buyout. Yeah. Otherwise, Lincoln Riley would have hit the bricks.
Even at USC, there are limits to these sorts of things. I just say you could do a Lane Kiffin tarmac style firing. Anyway,
not with $90 million left on that buyout. Nope.
So we'll get to the deals. Dennis Schröder was on the move this weekend. He goes from Brooklyn to Golden State in a deal that is intriguing, really, for Lakers fans, both because it's Brooklyn starting to make moves and a lot of nets are on the radar for the Lakers, and also for the price that it took for the Warriors to acquire Schröder. Very interesting and potentially beneficial to the Lakers. So we'll unpack all of that in a moment, Andy. But first, we got to talk about LeBron James. He was back with the team, played in Sunday's win over Memphis. Good win for the Lakers. LeBron, I think, given how little he's played over played pretty well, had a lot more energy, particularly on the defensive side, than he has over the last, I don't know how many games have we played so far this season.
26.
All right. The other 25.
I would say LeBron has had good defensive energy. Out of those 26, 24 that he played in, maybe 5.
5 or 6. Yeah.
Maybe 5.
Okay. So anyway, LeBron back in the lineup and played with a lot more energy. 18, 8, and 8 was the stat line. It was, I think, the hope that, okay, you get the time off, you recharge the batteries a little bit, and we're back, baby. It is not quite that simple. The truth.
No. First of all, and this is something that both you and I did not know, and thanks to a friend of the show, Jovan Buha, and his reporting for The Athletic, he went through some past injury designations of LeBron, trying to figure out if this left foot soreness is the same foot that a few years ago, you may recall, LeBron James went to an unnamed doctor that he referred to as the LeBron James of feet, because LeBron was having so many problems with that foot and wasn't able to get a handle on it. And we only found out about this.
By the way, it was Dennis Schröder who tipped us off that LeBron James had visited the LeBron James of feet.
Yep, Dennis Schröder was the local gossip, and it turns out that was LeBron's right foot that required a trip to the LeBron James of feet. The current foot is the left foot. So what we know now is, regardless of whether there will be another trip to the LeBron James of feet, now both feet are an issue. And apparently the left foot has been bothering LeBron for just as long as that right foot, which led to LeBron acknowledging that, as he said, quote, it's an everyday thing. And I took that to mean that this is going to be something he is going to be managing this season.
I think what this does for me is there was this notion, sort of unrealistic and highly romantic as it might have been, that he was going to play in all 82 and, prove something to people at age 40 or, be there for the fans or whatever the impetus was. That is officially out the window. He can't do that. And I think there's been a rethinking, because LeBron said something I thought was interesting. It's like, if it was up to me, I'd have played, against, I think, was it the Atlanta game that he missed and then in Portland?
It was the Portland game he played.
Right. Well, but he mentioned both games that he's missed this season, by name before the other one. And
he played in the Atlanta game, though.
I'm just saying, I'm saying I forget which one it was. He mentioned two games that he missed. And so maybe he was asking, maybe he said Memphis. But point being, there is no game that LeBron James doesn't get to decide whether or not he's going to play. The team with his team and all that, everybody got together when they saw the schedule and looked at it, realized what the benefit of this stretch would be, and came to a decision. But it's not like LeBron didn't have agency in that and, couldn't have said, sorry, guys, I'm playing. And everybody would have been like, all right, what are we going to do? He's LeBron James and he wants to play. So this tells me that going forward, everyone is going to have a much more realistic and hopefully beneficial game plan when it comes to how to maximize LeBron. And even if that means he misses some games, and this season's numbers notwithstanding, I think it is still fair to say that games LeBron doesn't play, the Lakers are more likely to lose. But they can't really afford to lose too many in the Western Conference. Everybody understands this. But at the same time, Andy, if he is either unavailable because he's hurt for a long stretch, or he's playing at the level as he did in that really bad stretch, or even a couple notches above that, but well below where the Lakers need him, the Lakers are going to lose too many games anyway. They need to maximize him, inconvenient as it might be, challenging as it might be. It's the only path forward that I can see that is at least kind of viable here.
It's going to be interesting to see how they go about doing this. Redick, after the game, said, quote, I think it requires communication and feedback from both parties. Also, maybe it's not sitting out of the game, but maybe it's not necessarily like I told him the other night before the game, not necessarily less minutes, but shorter runs so that he's not getting gassed, and then quicker segments on the bench, and then he's back in. You know what I mean? So there's different ways to do it than to just say, we're going to rest you and you're going to sit out of the game. We'll see. I mean, I am not surprised that LeBron looked lively for this game against Memphis, considering he hadn't played in 9 days and also didn't even practice, and physically and mentally, I'm sure he was pretty recharged. I imagine that Thursday against Sacramento, given that there's 3 days off, he's going to look pretty lively in that game as well. What's going to be interesting and I think telling is how he looks on Saturday, also against Sacramento. And then the rest of the time when the NBA season starts resembling an NBA season again, I guess, basically between this coming Saturday and the All-Star break, which, side note already, start working on the excuse for LeBron not participating.
Oh, my arm.
I mean, for real.
100%.
Get him the hell out of that thing,
folks, and sit down.
Right. There's zero reasons for LeBron to be playing in that game. But like I've talked about this before, we don't know how rechargeable these batteries are and how long they can go without being charged again. And that's really what's going to be figured out in real time with LeBron moving forward. Again, it's not that he is going to be just completely washed or unable to ever perform at a high level. I think it's more going to be the predictability of it or lack thereof, and then how you go about negotiating that lack of predictability, because in the meantime, you have to find a way to manage the season.
So one of the things that is being managed right now, the trade market by Rob Pelinka, some deals already happening this weekend. Dennis Schröder to Golden State, intriguing to the Lakers and Lakers fans, mostly for the cost. And we'll explain what that means next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. You can tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on Abe Lincoln, and you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So, pro tip, pick something really obvious. Put down the $5. Boom, there you go. If you win, $150 in bonus bets. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So let's just say you get a hunch in the middle of a game. You just want to confirm and make sure I'm not just misremembering things or whatever. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So all that info streamlined right there for you. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. And again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Quick reminder, you can see it if you're watching on YouTube in the bottom corner there, the Locked On Daily newsletter. You click on that. You go there, you click on there, and you click around, you get to Locked On Lakers. You have this show delivered to you every day in your inbox. That includes the postcast with Dave Pele after game days, and, of course, every one of our broadcasts as well. So go ahead and subscribe there. So Dennis Schröder goes to Golden State with a second-round pick in exchange for 3 second-round picks. So it's a net 2 second-rounders to Brooklyn in exchange for Dennis Schröder. The Nets, I think, maybe had hoped, I mean, all teams do, that they might be able to get some kind of first-rounder out of this or something like that. That felt a little unrealistic to me. But with the new CBA, it's been a little hard to figure out, well, what is the market going to be? We know the free agent market was really slow. Does that mean the trade market's going to be kind of dampened too, or could it perk up the trade market? I don't know. That was a pretty reasonable cost to go from to get a pretty good player in Schröder from one place to the next. And I think if you're a Laker fan, you look at that and say, as an initial volley into the trade market, that's at least a decent sign that it's not going to be incredibly expensive to make deals, because the Lakers just don't have a lot in their pockets, so to speak.
Yeah, hopefully that is, I guess, the foundation being laid in terms of prices set and stuff like that. Just in terms of, I know, just because I've seen, whether on Twitter at Cam Brothers or sometimes comment section, when Laker fans have been looking for players to target, Schröder has come up before, and just I have no idea how interested, not interested, whatever the Lakers have been in Schröder. But insofar as the idea of why couldn't the Lakers have done this, it's important to remember the salary was matched by DeAnthony Melton, who is not just an expiring contract that basically lines up exactly with Schröder's money. He is injured for the season. So therefore, he cannot play, cannot help the Brooklyn Nets in any way whatsoever, which is great for them because they are too high in the standings already for their liking. They need to drop down a little bit further. So you get a player that you don't even have to worry about buying out or figuring out the I don't know, politics of how you put him on the court if you don't want to, whatever. He's
right, and he's an expiring.
Right. And he's like the most comparable money the Lakers would have directly to trade Brooklyn in a deal for Schröder would have been Gabe Vincent. Gabe Vincent has one more year on his deal and wants to be on the court. So in this,
I mean, even if you think, as Brooklyn, well, they could trade for him and then move him again or whatever, you still have that extra year that you have to deal with,
or the task of moving him again. Right.
Melton's just is a cleaner deal for them. So none of this is to say, as Rob Pelinka likes to point out, these things are going to be complicated to do. The rules are really tough. And, the Lakers don't have a lot of those disposable contracts. But, had Schröder gone for a first rounder, it would have been a horrible signal. And it starts to signal as well that the Nets are officially open for business, because basically everyone on that team is available in one form or another. I mean, maybe a guy like Cam Thomas they might want to hold on to, but I don't know. I think the right offer, everybody could be had there. Guys like Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, these are names that are very much on the Lakers' radar.
Daron Sharp, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. And so once you start throwing around those names, and the cost for Cam Johnson is going to be higher. He's having a great year. The Nets know that Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be a very popular target for them around the league. Everybody could use that kind of good shooting, high level wing defender. Like, everybody wants them, and there are not very many of them around the league. So like the idea that you would get some of those guys without putting a first rounder in a deal, that's not realistic. But you wouldn't necessarily need two, or maybe a first ring. A lot of people have talked about putting those two guys in a deal together, Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. Do you think you could get both of those guys for maybe one pick and the best package of contracts you can put together in a bunch of seconds? Like, that feels at least like it's on the table right now, as we start to get past December 15th and deals are going to start percolating a little bit.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, I know there had been a lot of talk last season when it was clear what direction Brooklyn would be going in, that they were looking for 2 firsts just for Dorian Finney-Smith or just for Cam Johnson.
Right.
And
it should be noted, both of those guys are still on the Brooklyn Nets.
Right. So if nothing else, that might indicate that they've come to realize that they may have to come down from what was reportedly the asking price for them last year. In the case of Dorian Finney-Smith, there might be a little bit more urgency to move him immediately, just because he has a player option for next year. And if he opts out, then they could theoretically lose him without getting anything in return. Cam Johnson's under contract for a couple more years, and he's having a good season, but come February and beyond, I don't think Cam Johnson by himself is going to win too many games for you. So they may not have as much urgency to immediately move him if they truly don't like the offers out there. But just the idea that a team like the Lakers, that is not dealing with a treasure trove of assets, might be able to get into this stuff a little bit more easily if this is in fact the market having been set. That is good to know. I mean, Evan Sidery from Forbes, covers the NBA, reported, or tweeted really, but I mean, I think it's accompanying larger article that, quote, the Lakers are showing serious trade interest recently in 2 center targets, Robert Williams and Jonas Valančiūnas. Los Angeles has been shopping around, attempting to find an impact big man before the deadline. Those are 2 guys that you have heard before that their respective teams would like a first for. They are both 2 players that not in a million years would I give a first for if I was the Lakers. I don't think either one of them, for a variety of reasons, is worth that cost. Maybe this is indicative of that not being a thing for the Lakers.
Well, let's talk about that, because the Lakers have a limited amount of contracts. You got to make the money work. Because they have a limited amount of picks, you got to give people something that they want. I mean, the Lakers don't even have, it's not like the Lakers have 17 second rounders or something like that. They have a limited amount of second rounders as well to go with their first rounders. And they may need to use some of that capital, some of those second rounders, depending on the deal, to move guys off the roster so that they can make a different trade. So even the amount of second rounders the Lakers have, you can't automatically say, well, just put all of them in a deal for Robert Williams or whatever it might be, because it may not work depending on the parameters of the deal. So let's look at this next. Let's look at the possibilities that people are talking about now in terms of realistic stuff. You mentioned the centers. Williams, or Valanciunas. You mentioned
another name that I've been thinking about has come up among the center markets, and a guard. A bit of ghosts of Lakers trade talk past. I'm wondering now is much more realistic.
We can compare all those things to the sort of Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson path, which would cost you probably most of your stuff, I think, in one form or another. So we'll get to those questions next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, with the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific product disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing requires risks. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
Locked On Lakers is also brought to you by Rocket Money. We've all been there, I think, at this point. It is so easy to sign up and subscribe for things. And, you just sort of, you do for a year, you do it for a month, whatever it is, and you just forget that those things are there. I have gone through this process, and I have found the amount of stuff that I did not realize I was still subscribed to, and the amount of money it was costing me on a yearly basis. Rocket Money makes it incredibly easy to track these things down and figure out what you're spending your money on and how to stop doing it. It is like having a personal assistant for your finances. Here's how it works. It's a personal finance app that finds and even cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings, brings everything together in one place. This is critically important, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, even the goals you want to hit this year. It's really makes it so much better if you can see all of this stuff in one dashboard. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, most of that mine, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So if you want to figure out how much you're spending on stuff and stop doing it for things that you don't want, cancel your unwanted subscriptions, reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Andy, let's start with the centers. The most common name that has been linked to the Lakers is the big bruiser in New Orleans, Jonas Valančiūnas. No, he's not in New Orleans anymore. He's
That's
in
a couple teams ago.
Right. That was in Washington. Jonas Valančiūnas, who the Lakers did not sign on his way to Washington.
He was on LeBron's list.
He was
guys that he would have taken a pay cut for.
He is obviously the very substantial body that would give the Lakers front court a lot more heft. He's like 4 Christian Colocos, and he's a very good player. I mean, I think that is well understood. The other name that pops up some because Portland just has too many centers and no use for some of them is Robert Williams III. Talented guy, extremely spotty injury history, has spent far more time not on the floor over the last few years than actually on it.
He's played 8 games this season,
which is a lot for him, over the last couple, unfortunately. If you could pick one of those guys, and you probably only can pick one, which direction would you go there? Because presumably the cost for both of them would probably be about the same.
I mean, full disclosure, I'm not particularly wild about either one of them. Jonas Valančiūnas is a better bet to stay on the court, but I think the area where the Lakers need most help defensively from a big man. He is not particularly good at all. He's a good rebounder. He can help you there. But as far as other than maybe just standing as like a brick wall, guarding the lane or spotting someone, okay, he is pretty bad defensively.
He is a, sort of decent enough offensive player that you can, maybe put those two guys together without taking Anthony Davis completely away from the basket all the time. I think he probably could play a little bit more with AD than Williams could.
I disagree. I think Williams has more defensive versatility.
He has more defensive versatility, but you got to figure out what to do with him on the other side of the ball. I think ultimately Williams wouldn't spend much time on the floor with AD.
I've said this many times. I think the replicating the 2020 formula of two bigs, whatever, is a waste of everybody's time. I don't think that's really a thing anymore. But if you're asking me which guy I think fits better with AD overall, it's actually Robert Williams. I if nothing else, I think he gives you more defensive versatility and more of a fit between the two than Valanciunas.
And gives them a better, more importantly, I think for me at least, gives them a better defensive backup center than you would get with Valanciunas.
Yes.
Presumably, though, let's say you could do all of that with second rounders. You would need some of those second rounders to get, either one or both of Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. If you get both of them, it's going to certainly cost you at least a first rounder, and then probably every other second rounder you have to avoid that putting the other first rounder in. If you have to choose a path, I know I would rather go after Cam Johnson and Finney-Smith.
So would I.
What's interesting too, you talk about replicating, you're not necessarily trying to replicate 2020. The Finney-Smith Cam Johnson direction actually kind of lets you do it. You wouldn't have the backup centers in the sense like, when AD's off the floor or like, combinations of that. But what you would have is a lot of length and a lot of guys that can guard multiple positions, and you can be big without having a lot of bigs on the floor. I mean, Cam Johnson's 6'8", Finney-Smith is very long himself and all that. And now you start to be able to put a lineup out there where, because this kind of trade would probably almost certainly cost you both D'Lo and Gabe Vincent. But you create a lot of defensive versatility with Johnson, who's a pretty good defender. Finney-Smith is definitely a good defender. And, somebody like Max Christie kind of emerging as a guy who can guard 2s and 3s and 1s, as we saw over the weekend with John Morant.
Better 1s and 2s than 2s and 3s, but yes.
Sure. Then you have Finney-Smith who can fill in for that stuff. Cam Johnson, who provides you legitimate three-point shooting and defensive presence on the wing. They become a very intriguing. You add those two guys, taking away D'Lo and Vincent, you become thin at guard. There's no question. But I think this becomes a kind of an intriguing team if you add those two guys to the roster.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can do it, but it's intriguing.
As far as backup bigs goes, just to put a bow on that, I've mentioned him before, and I'll stay on it. Nick Richards in Charlotte is the guy that I'm really looking at. He's about $5 million this year, and I think a non-guaranteed $5 million beyond that.
Right.
I'm guessing it would be about roughly the same cost in terms of draft capital. But Nick Richards, is a very good defensive backup. He's a rebounder. He's a shot blocker. He's had some injury history himself, but certainly not as extreme as Robert Williams III. I also think he's just more perfectly slotted for that role. Like that is, he could start in a pinch if you need to, but he is, I think, just a quality backup big. The other name, though, because I've just been thinking about names and, is there anybody that hasn't been as directly linked to the Lakers of late that as far as big men goes? And I want to just make it clear, I've not heard anything about his potential availability. I'm just watching because the team has not been performing well. I wonder if Miles Turner could become available potentially again. Like he is if Indiana is not sure that they're actually moving in the right direction, or that they can try to recapture what was going on last season, where it felt like they were taking tangible steps in the right direction as a young blossoming team, all of a sudden Miles Turner, who's 29, feels very ill-placed for whatever they would be planning to do moving forward. And he and AD still would be one hell of a front court tandem on both sides of the ball. And that is somebody that at minimum is worth one of your firsts. You have to be
they're worth and would obviously cost you.
You have to be willing to commit to Turner moving forward because he's an expiring deal at about 20 mil, but he is somebody that makes sense. Assuming you want to stay in the Anthony Davis business, he is somebody that makes sense with AD. So it just kind of dawned on me, keep an eye on what's going on there. The other name, as far as old trade rumor friends that I've been wondering about a bit, given the news that the Pelicans might be looking to blow it up with any of their veterans, including potentially even Zion. I wonder if DeJounte Murray might become an option now for the Lakers, because when he was a member of the Hawks, and by multiple accounts, trade talks between the Lakers and the Hawks fell apart because the Hawks wanted Austin Reeves and the Lakers said no, and they weren't interested in D'Angelo Russell. The Hawks were looking to stay in contention, so therefore that's why getting Reeves was important for them. The Pelicans, if they're looking to blow things up, they want to get first and foremost off DeJounte Murray's money and maybe try to recoup a little bit of the draft capital that they gave up to get him. But they're going to be most interested in getting off 65 mil over the next 2 seasons guaranteed, and then potentially an almost $32 million player option. That's a situation where D'Lo and other either expiring money or close to expiring money, and then at least one first. I don't know if I'd go 2, but 1 done deal. I wonder if that starts becoming more of a realistic option for the Lakers.
Well, all of this is stuff potentially to take a look at, unpack. Let us know in the comments section which you can only do one of these things. The bigger you go, the less you can. Even somebody like if you do Nick Richards as a deal, that probably takes you out of contention for almost anything else because you don't have those second rounders. You put yourself at the very least in a position where you must use your first rounders, both of them, potentially to make any other kind of deal, which is, I don't think, a position the Lakers necessarily want to have to be in. Might want to make that bigger deal first and then see what's left over afterwards. I think if you could order them in any direction, but let us know what is most intriguing to you. We'll talk a little bit more about this for tomorrow's show. Also, too, we'll get you ready for the back-to-back Sacramento games with Matt George from the network Locked On Kings, kind of previewing that, see what's going on with a team that the Lakers are suddenly competing very closely with in playoff position. So plenty to unpack over the course of the week. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 26,000 subscribers to the channel. Subscribe to the newsletter. Keep an eye out for the postcast. See everyone tomorrow.